Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt from Studio North. Winterfell has fallen as Genghis Khan has arrived, so I'm just going to stay in my studio for 2 consecutive days as the 3-year-old rampages through our main retreat. I am joined by Senator James Lankford, who is, of course, the senator from Oklahoma. He has won his nomination to, again, win handily in the fall. But, Senator, I want to talk to you about reconciliation, but at first I want to start with Eric Schmidt won last night in Missouri. Blake Masters won last night in Arizona. Seems to me the field is pretty much set. New Hampshire hadn't voted yet, but we've got a lineup here. And good morning to you. I don't want to cut you up before I go right there. I hope you're feeling well this morning.
I am actually. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well also, even though is rampaging through your place.
Well, I think you've got some of those on your own ticket, but when you're a grandfather, I just can't keep up with them. Senator, we got Blake Masters in Arizona, Joe O'Dea in Colorado, Herschel Walker in Georgia, Ted Budd in North Carolina, Chuck Morse probably in New Hampshire, Adam Laxalt in Nevada, J.D. Vance in Ohio, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, Tiffany Smiley in Washington State, and, of course, Ron Johnson in Wisconsin with serious races on their hands. How do you think we come out of those 10 races?
All of those are very serious races. Thanks for highlighting all of them. Those are all areas to be able to focus in on and for folks to be able to participate in if they choose to be able to do that. We do look good in all of these races. We do have momentum. Unfortunately, we have momentum because Biden is continuing to be able to drive the economy into the ditch. The more he focuses in on trying to, quote-unquote, fix the economy, the worse that it seems to get. Latest poll that I saw on right track, wrong track for the country, 78% of the country now believes we're on the wrong track, which surprises me. There's still 22% of the country out there thinking this looks good. But there's a real pull in the country to say this does not feel right. We need to go a very different direction.
Now, the president scored a couple of wins. The CHIPS Act, he's doing a dance, although that was bipartisan. And, of course, taking out Zawahiri is a grand and good thing. And I give him credit for pulling the trigger. I give Nancy Pelosi credit for going to Taiwan. But we're still stuck with this reconciliation bill. I've explained it this way. We don't know where Senator Sinema is. If they get her and the vice president and everybody on the floor, they can pass this nightmare, it's called the Inflation Reduction Act. Not about inflation, doesn't reduce anything. It raises taxes and spending. And it's Joe Manchin not acting. It's collapsing. First, what's the story on Senator Sinema? What do we know?
Yeah, we don't know on that. She's been very quiet on it as she's going through it, and she'll make her decision when she makes her decision. But you are correct. They're calling this the Inflation Reduction Act, except the problem is when they actually scored it, it doesn't reduce inflation. They say it reduces deficits as well, except when they scored it, they said it doesn't reduce deficits either. What it does is it increased taxes during a recession, and those taxes specifically hardest hit manufacturers in the United States. So while we have a supply chain issue, they're raising taxes on manufacturing and making it harder for them. It does hire thousands and thousands of new IRS agents to do audits. The focus of there's no focus on the audit. So it's small businesses, people in every income bracket that are out there that they're going after with new IRS agents. It does raise the cost of natural gas, which is going to raise the cost of energy. It does make it harder to be able to develop new drugs. And my favorite piece of it, it literally takes quote-unquote savings on the healthcare side from Medicare and takes it out of Medicare, which is already having problems financially, and moves it over to the Affordable Care Act. So it literally takes money from the investment for 76-year-olds and moves it over and gives subsidies to 26-year-olds instead. So there's a lot of problems in this bill that it creates more issues than solves issues.
Now, Senator, I've lobbied Senator Toomey and Senator Cotton on the air, others off the air, that the reconciliation vote-a-rama, if they get Senator Sinema, it proceeds to the floor and there's a vote-a-rama. And usually that means hundreds of votes on symbolic stuff. Could the Republicans get their act together and just stick to 3 or 4 to define the campaign? Like nuclear power plant subsidies instead of electric vehicles, expand the Navy, build charter schools, both public and private, and call it infrastructure. But whatever it is, just focus on 3 or 4 things, because the vote-a-rama does not have any political effect in distinguishing the parties.
It does have political effect in the campaign this fall, where you get a chance to put people on record so they can say, I am for X, Y, Z, but when they actually voted, they voted against it. and it gives the opportunity to be able to actually put some things side by side. I'm extremely doubtful that we would have 3 votes on this. I think this is going to be a protracted vote, but I think we're not going to be in the hundreds. I think we're going to be more like 30, 35 or so votes of various topics, whether that be on energy issues, whether it be on healthcare issues, whether it be on immigration. There'll be some key points of differentiation to be able to say, where do people really stand, not what they say, but where they actually vote.
But you'll get Raphael Warnock and Mark Kelly and Patty Murray to all vote the right way on a bunch of symbolic stuff. And then they'll pass the wraparound at the end that reduces all those things, right? That's what always happens.
Yep, that'll be the real question. That has happened sometimes and has not happened sometimes. So, for instance, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema voted for the wraparound to be able to, quote-unquote, cure everything that had been changed, which is really flip it back to what it was originally 2 vote-a-ramas ago. Then the last vote-a-rama that happened on reconciliation, they both rejected that and said, no, we're not going to do that. So the question will be is, for Manchin and Sinema, are they going to vote one way at one moment and then another way at another moment? Or are they going to say, we're not going to do a wraparound to literally vote at one point yes and then one point no an hour later? So we'll see where that actually goes in the days ahead. I don't think either of them have made a decision on what that looks like.
Put me down in the column that 35 amendments is a nightmare. And I know Dan Sullivan's a friend of the show and a good guy, and he wants to do permit reform. That's got no legs in Washington State or in Arizona or Georgia or New Hampshire because people don't understand it. Nuclear plants, they understand. Education. Education's actually, crime and education are the hottest topics other than inflation. Do you agree with me? So you're out there on the campaign trail. You're going to win by 30 points, but you hear what people are talking about. They're talking about crime, inflation, and education.
That is correct. Along that with the price of energy, of course, that goes with inflation, but those are the top things that come up over and over and over again. That's what people want to be able to fix. That's why the energy focus of this is so important, because everything's driven on energy. And you talked about the permitting piece on it. Of course, Joe Manchin is saying he wants to be able to do this inflation bill that raises taxes dramatically, especially on manufacturers, and then also increases dramatic spending. He says on the promise that Schumer and Pelosi have said they will do permitting reform as well. The real issue really is the permitting reform. We're literally voting on a bill that deals with hundreds of billions of dollars in new spending, when really what's needed is the next step, is what Manchin says is coming, and that's permitting reform. If we allow the free market to actually be able to run and not try to be able to control them all the time from D.C., these problems will resolve themselves. But as long as D.C. has its grip around these things, that's going to continue to be the challenge for getting more energy.
Well, Senator, if there's also, in my limited amendments, an amendment barring masking for mandatory masking for schools that receive federal funds, and barring CRT for schools that receive federal funds, or teaching any divisive subject, is how Glenn Youngkin frames it, and Mark Kelly votes against that, he's done. If Raphael Warnock votes against either of those things, he's done. Are those going to make it onto the short list of the short list, I hope?
They have already been on the short list, actually. In previous reconciliations, they've already voted on those things. So those issues are already on the record. Most of the votes that you will see will be areas where people have not voted in the past on it, because other reconciliation bills, they are on the record voting for masking, voting for CRT, voting for all of those things. So, yeah, there'll be multiple new ones. But there'll also be some classics that'll come around just to be able to reinforce.
The classic, I just hope the list is short, because from a perspective of a communicator, the longer the list, the less effective any item on it. Senator, talk to me about what you think inflation and growth will be in October before the election. We got 98 days to the vote, I think, maybe 97. And the CPI is going to go down a little bit because gasoline's coming down a little bit, but the core is going to go up. Where do you think we're going to be in October?
Yeah, I think we're going to be pretty close to where we are right now, 9% inflation. We're going to continue to have supply chain issues. The price of gasoline is going down. The Biden administration is celebrating and say, look, gas prices are coming down. But what they're not saying, and what everybody knows, the reason gas prices are going down, supply is going up because people are driving less. They can no longer afford to be able to drive. They're bundling all their errands together and doing shorter trips or no trips at all to be able to get out. And that is bringing consumption down, which is bringing the price down, basic economics, but it's because people have less money and they can't afford to drive, and so it's bringing that down. So literally the price of gasoline coming down is a result of this bad economy and the recession that's coming.
Senator Lankford,